We are nearly there. We are getting ready to assemble our cams into our boxes. We're going to try and do one of each cam and see if we can get on shape to allow us to animate. I will be honest, I'm having a little bit of a tough time with the snail cam. Hopefully I can figure it out before we get there. But in the meantime, we need to bring our cams in. So some of you told me that you went ahead and you added in your cams to your Automata Box document, and that is awesome. Mrs. Banka, on the other hand, was not so smart. So I have my parametric cams all in a separate document, and it's not the end of the world. You can see this is me trying out all sorts of different things to try and get that snail cam to work. It's not the end of the world, but you do need to, we're going to move these over, the ones that you've done, into the correct document. It just makes modeling and changing things a lot easier. The other thing is oh no, we did round holes on this one. So you should be good, but if for some reason you have square holes, then that does need to get fixed. All right, the way we do this is I am going to move this to a document, and you can choose to make a copy if you want to. I'm going to do other documents and go to created by me. I'm going to demo automata. That's what I've called it. And I'm going to go ahead and move. And you'll see it's no longer there. And I'm going to do eccentric cam. Going to move. Do recently open. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier. Yep. And we'll do snail cam. Hindsight, it may be a little bit smarter for you to actually duplicate and then move a duplicate, but we're already committed. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to take care of my stuff. You go ahead and do the same. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start placing in our cams. The first thing we're going to do is click Insert, and we are going to do our eccentric cam. That seems to be the nicest, easiest one to get started with because it is just round. What we're going to do now is we are going to do a fasten constraint with an offset. So I'm going to fasten the, let's see, this edge of that circle to this edge, to the outer edge of the follower. And you want to make sure that it's kind of sinking into that axle bushing. That, remember, is 0, 0. So what we're going to do is we need to move this in place by using the offset. And there's a little bit of math involved with it. So this right here is a 1/4 inch thick material, I believe. Yeah, maybe 3/16. Let's look. Let's try it out. So we're going to do an offset. That hole is centered at 1 inch from the edge. So we're at maybe 1 3/16 inch. So -1.3/16, I believe is 0.188. Let's solve and see where that places us. So that puts that outside edge right in the center, which is a little bit too far. So let's try a -1 inch and see what happens. Not enough, so let's do half that distance, so 1.09. And that's better. Not perfect, but better. Okay, so the next part, we're going to go ahead and accept it. We're happy with where it's located. The next part is we are going to constrain the follower to the outside edge of the cam. And the way we're going to do that, I'm going to move the follower out of the way. And Okay, so to get this curved surface to follow along the outside edge, we're going to use what's called a tangent constraint. And the tangent constraint is kind of tricky on Onshape because, and I think it has to do with the fact that everything that it is doing is rendering in the cloud. And that is amazing that we get to do a lot of what we're doing right now on Chromebooks or computers or MacBooks, wherever you are, even iPads. But there are some limitations, and that is when we have a sharp edge or something that it that's why the snail cam is a little difficult. So anyway, the way we're going to do this is we are going to choose the rounded surface of the follower and the rounded surface of our eccentric cam. And we're going to go ahead and hit, and it didn't like it. So let's see why. One of the things that you can try is instead of choosing the curved surface here, we're going to choose the curved edge. You can see if that made it a little happier. So it went ahead and joined. We're going to hit the green check mark. And then what we're going to do is we're going to test by trying to crank the crank, to rotate the crank. See, my internet is struggling a little bit. So let's go ahead and revolute. We're going to animate, go to the crank revolute. We're going to animate and hit go. And you can see that is following along, but I do want it to go a little bit faster. So I'm going to decrease the number of steps, hit go, and we're good. So we got it to work. Looks pretty good. Now, let's say I want that cam, I want it to be a little bit bigger. So remember, we did, this is part one, we did use configuration. So I'm going to change my configuration. I have a diameter of 1 inch. Maybe what I want to do is make that a 2 inch. So I'm going to generate that. And you can see it automatically updated, which is super cool. And let's animate that to see if that gives me a little bit better motion than I want. I'm going to decrease the steps so it goes a little bit faster. Change it to loop so it actually goes around. And okay, so the reason why that's not working is, look, it's actually butting up against my limits. So that tells me that 2-inch cam doesn't work. We're going to go back and change configuration again. We're going to make that diameter a little bit smaller, 1.5. Okay, and let's try animating that and see what works. And there we go. There's clearance and everything. So that's important. All right, let's go ahead and place the pear cam. So we're going to go ahead and find pear cam, place it, and we're going to use the fasten mate. And we'll get that outer edge, center of that, the outer edge of that. And now we got to figure out our offset. So I think we did 1 point or -1, maybe -1. So let's add another inch there and see if we can do an offset of -2. See where that, not 0.2, -2. See where that puts us. So pretty close. Let's add maybe -2.09 to it. And I like that a little better. So we're going to hit solve, green check mark. And I'm going to move this follower out of the way. And I'm going to use the tangent constraint again. You can notice as I'm rotating the cam that everything's rotating. That's important. You might have to, depending on your orientation, you might want to change how that pear cam's oriented. But for now, I'm okay with it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit tangent. Let's try the edge this time, to the bottom edge. It accepted it and liked it. Zoom out and let's try and revolute. Animate. Change our steps to 150 and see what happens. It's looking pretty good. There's our motion. Awesome. And then because we're doing reciprocating instead of a loop, it did just hop back. You can change that by going around 720 degrees. That'll make it 2 complete loops. But pretty awesome. Got it. Last one that we'll do for this video is the hex cam. So the hex cam is a little on the tricky side, but not nearly the level of difficulty of the snail. So we're going to go ahead and insert our hex cam and see what happens. So hex cam, place it, and I'm going to go ahead and change. Restore. I love that feature. I'm going to go ahead and change the configurations of this a little bit so that we can see more dramatic movement. So I went ahead and did the change configurations and changed it to a diameter of 2 inches. So I'm going to do my fasten mate here and then to the outer edge. And we're going to do an offset of, this is the 3rd hole, so negative 3.09, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I wonder if we can kind of rotate around. Does that, yeah, so if you hit this button right here, that allows you to rotate it a little bit, and that is telling us that we're rotating around the x-axis. So if we rotate around the x-axis, I wonder if we can control the, oh no, that's not what we want. So hit that back to 0. Maybe we need to rotate around Z. Rotate around Z, if we do 12 degrees, 90 degrees, that rotates the position. So if you get it assembled and you don't really like the way that it's oriented, I would rotate it around Z until you get to where you want it. Now with the tangent constraint, when I click, I'm going to bring this back over, we're going to grab tangent, the outer edge, and we're going to get a flat part of the cam. You can see that this whole thing did not highlight, and that's a problem. If I click go and I try and rotate that crank, it messes up. That's not good. The reason is the tangent constraint requires curved surfaces and a continuous curved surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this in context real quick, and we are going to add a fillet to each one of these edges here. And it doesn't have to be a huge fillet. We're talking like 0.01, and it should be enough to allow Onshape to recognize that, hey, this is curved surface. I need to, let's see, can I see it? Oh, I can. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to make those sides curved and click go. And then we're going to try and reapply, go back to the assembly. We're going to try and reapply that tangent constraint, or maybe it went ahead and detected it. It looks like it might have. So let's animate and see what happens. So animate. Change those steps down to 150. Let's go around twice. And let's change this to loop and hit go and see what happens. And there we are. So we've got our motion. Let me put this in a better orientation so you can see. And look. So we've got our cams and our followers following, and you can see the top of those followers, they're producing different types of motion. All right, I'm going to stop the video and we'll talk about the snail cams separately, but that should be it before we are done with our assembly. Great job, everybody.